Let's look at the top 4 queen traps in the Scandinavian defense. Here's the first one. White starts with e4, black plays d5. You know this opening is called as the Scandinavian defense, where black immediately challenges center by attacking the e4 pawn. And now a lot of times here players play knight to f3. Well, that's not a good move, it's a mistake. Because you are allowing black to capture your center pawn with a tempo attack on your knight. So black captures the pawn, and now white plays knight to g5. So that was the whole idea of playing knight to f3 first. So that if black captures this free pawn, then white can attack back this pawn with the knight by moving it to the g5 square. As well as, do not forget that this knight is aiming this weak f7 square in black's territory. If black gets greedy and tries to hold on to this pawn by playing knight to f6, then white can now play d3, luring black to capture another pawn over here. Now since black has double pawns on the e file and he desperately wants to get rid of this e4 pawn, he wouldn't mind capturing the e pawn. So he plays e takes d3, and now white can capture back with his bishop. And now since white is putting a lot of pressure on this h7 pawn, black feels a little uncomfortable here and might make a blunder of playing h6. Well, you must be wondering that why is this a blunder? Well, because this move allows white to play the brilliant knight takes f7, forking black's pieces. If black captures back the knight with his king, then he will immediately lose his queen with bishop to g6 check. King can go back to the original square in order to protect his queen, so he is forced to take the bishop, and now the black's queen is gone. This was so easy, right? Let's look at the second one. So e4, d5, and here white decides to take this d5 pawn in order to get this queen out on the board. So pawn takes pawn, queen takes pawn. And now white plays a tempo gaining move by simultaneously developing a piece while attacking this queen, and that is knight to c3. If black takes the queen to the a5 square, then white can play knight to f3, developing another minor piece and aiming for a quick castle. Now if here black makes a mistake of playing bishop to g4, thinking that hey, it's cool to pin this knight to the opponent's queen, then here you can play h3. If bishop takes the knight, then you can take back with your queen, attacking the weak b7 pawn and thereby eyeing this trapped rook over here. And here what should black play? Well, black might try to block this attack by playing knight to c6. And this does look like a normal move, right? Because you're developing a piece and also blocking this attack from the queen. But this is a mistake, because white can now pin this knight to the king by playing bishop to b5. And now this knight is double attacked by white's pieces and protected only once by black's pieces. So black here will now play the logical queen to b6. But that's another mistake, because white here can completely shock black by playing knight to d5, attacking the queen, as well as eyeing this weak c7 pawn over here in order to fork black's pieces. Since the queen is under attack, it will move to a5. But now white can trap the opponent queen by playing b4. Queen can take this pawn because it's protected by a knight. If queen takes the bishop, then black loses anyway because white can now play knight c7 check, forking 3 of white's pieces. King will move to d8 and now the queen is gone. That's one cool trap to learn, right? So do like this video and subscribe to my channel. And now let's move on to the third trap. So obviously the game will start with e4, d5, pawn takes pawn, queen takes pawn, and now knight to c3, attacking the queen. Queen goes to a5, and here white can play a very interesting move b4. The idea is white is gambiting a pawn in order to activate his rook on the b file as well as open up lines for his dark squared bishop. So if black fails to understand this idea and becomes greedy and captures this pawn, then white can play knight to b5, threatening to fork black's pieces over here. Queen will likely come to the a5 square in order to protect this weak c7 pawn. But here black doesn't realizes that he is slowly falling into the white's trap, because white can now play bishop c4, eyeing the weak f7 pawn, and here black might play c6. It is the most popular move in this position, played by thousands of players. But this is a blunder. Why is this a blunder? Because white can now play bishop takes f7 check. If king takes the bishop, then white can attack the king with his queen, so queen h5 check. Black will most likely block the check with g6, but this last move just loses black's queen. Can you find the winning move for white over here? Well, knight to d6 check, checking the black king while leaving a discovered attack on this black's queen. So pawn takes knight and queen takes queen wins the game for white. Yeah, I know there might be other possible variations in this trap. Black may not play exactly how it's shown over here, but to learn and understand what happens in other variations, stay tuned for my video which will cover this Scandinavian defense topic in detail. So now let's look at the fourth trap, and this time we are going to see how you can trap the white queen in the Scandinavian defense. So the game starts with e4, d5, pawn takes pawn, and now because you want to trap white's queen, you don't want to get your queen out over here for capturing this pawn. So instead what you should play is knight to f6, attacking this pawn with your knight. White might play d4 over here, which looks normal, so you should capture the pawn. And white might play c4 over here, attacking this knight and gaining a tempo. And here, instead of going back to the f6 square, you should get your knight to the b4 square. Well, this obviously is a mistake. It's not a good move, because if you're playing this against grandmasters or some very experienced player in chess, then you might lose the game. So only try this against players whom you know that they are not pro in chess. So why knight to b4 is a mistake? Because you are allowing white to play queen to a4, forking white's pieces over here. So now what will you play? You will play knight a to c6, blocking this check and also providing protection to this attacked knight over here. And here white will most likely play a3, attacking this knight one more time. So you should get your knight to the a6 square. And here white will be rejoicing because he thinks, oh, now he can win a black's knight by playing d5. So he plays d5, attacking the pinned knight over here. The knight can move and you can't pretty do much about this. So here you will play knight to c5 first, attacking this queen. Since white wants to maintain this pin over here because he wants to win this knight with his pawn, so white will play queen to b5. But that's a mistake, my friend, because black can now play e5. And what's the idea behind this move? Well, it's opening up lines for this dark squared bishop as well as providing defense to this attacked knight over here. White will here play pawn takes knight, and now while it does look like you have lost a knight for nothing, but here if you carefully look at the position, white's queen is kind of trapped on the side of the board because he doesn't have access to both of these squares, neither these two squares. So the only squares available for the white queen are these two squares. So you will take away these two squares as well. Notice you don't really have to worry about this particular square because it's already been taken care by a dark squared bishop over here. I know the knight is blocking, but he can still get control of this square whenever he wants. So let's aim of taking control of this other square, and that is a5. And how we can do that? Well, black can play b6. And now white's queen is kind of trapped. Where should he go? If he goes to the only available square b4, then he loses anyway because black can now play knight d3 check with a discovered attack on the queen. So bishop takes knight and bishop takes queen, loses white's queen. Let's go back. And if white decides to stay over here by playing any other developing move like bishop to e3 or knight to d2 or knight to c3, then none of these moves help white anyway, because after one of these moves, black can attack white's queen with the move a6. The queen is trapped and it cannot be saved anymore. Join the membership program of this channel if you want to level up your skills in chess. And now let's see if you can trap the opponent's queen. Here it is black's turn to move. And what should black play? Let me know your answers in the comments box and I'll see you in the next video.